What's going on? We have a fantastic guest today. We have Coach Kenny Simpson, head coach at Southside High School out there in Arkansas, 4A school. He's really done a fantastic job since getting there. I think coach was originally over in Montgomery, Alabama, came over to this school and took a team that had lost, I think, 20 games in a row, taking them to 4 consecutive playoff appearances plus, been conference coach of the year. He's been an all-star coach, and he's gone from Alabama to Arkansas and just done a phenomenal job in developing this program and becoming one of the top coaches in the state of Arkansas. Coach, it's great to have you on.
Well, man, that's a better introduction than my wife would have given me right there, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we got to build you up. We got to build you guys up before we get you on, man.
They think I know what I'm talking about when you say all that stuff.
Kenny, that's half the battle, Coach. That's half the battle.
That's right. That's right. Well, man, I appreciate y'all having me on. I'm looking forward to today.
It's great having you on. I guess if I missed something in your bio, I'd love to have you just talk a little bit how you got into coaching, your background. I'm also curious what made you go from Alabama over to Arkansas and to go over there coaching. Talk a little bit about that background.
Yeah, sure. I'll give just kind of a quick bio of my father was military, so we moved everywhere. So I played football in 3 different states in high school, Florida through like 9th grade, and then played in Arkansas for a little bit. That's kind of where I'm back in Arkansas. Played in Arizona my senior year. So I played we moved everywhere. And so went to Harding University where I met my wife. That's in Arkansas, which if you know much about football, they're having a great couple
yes, they
years
are.
Here. Yeah, when I was there, they weren't so good. They're good now, but so went to Harding. Met my wife there, and then we got married right out of college. And when that happens, you take whatever job they offer.
Yes, you did.
Alabama came calling, went to Huntsville for a couple of years as an assistant, was part of watched a rebuild. Coach did a great job kind of rebuilding a culture there in Madison Academy. They've won several state titles now. Of course, when I was there, they were not good and were getting good. Then at 25, got offered a DC job. So, when that happens, you just kind of take it. So we moved to Montgomery. We're there for several years. I became a head coach during that time and was able to have some success. We wanted to get to Arkansas area. My wife's family's in Texas, so not real far away. We're from Harding, went there. So we kind of wanted to get back this direction the whole time. When you move states, usually the jobs you take are not great jobs, and so we took a job as on a 27-game losing streak, and it didn't happen overnight, but you kind of we're able to allude to a few things. We've been able to get it going the right direction. So that took a while. I got humbled for a long time while we were trying to build it back up. But we were able to build it back up. And COVID hit. During COVID, I started producing coaching materials, books, and social media and all that kind of stuff. And I can't sit still, so I couldn't just sit at my house and do nothing. So that kind of opened some doors for me to produce a lot of coaching materials, and that's been really, really rewarding. So during the off season, during football, I work with football coaches across the country, whether that's offensive stuff. We have an offensive system we run, and a lot of coaches are running that now in all 50 states, all across the world. It's been really cool. And then I also work with defensive coaches and other coaches. So a lot has changed. My wife's been able to run the business from home. So that kind of was the goal. Let my wife be able to stay home and be with our kids and raise them. And then she's now probably more busy than I am during season because she's having to, ship books and handle all the stuff that I don't know how to do. So been really, really blessed in that world.
Oh, Dave, you're on mute.
That's really cool stuff. Talk about the business side of how you got into developing your systems and your programs and then, going ahead and selling it. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's different. I was a big Tony Franklin fan when I was a coach, and we went to a lot of his clinics, and I thought, man, this guy, he's got it down. I mean, you leave this immersive, you know what you're going to do. Clinics are great. Twitter is great, but a lot of times it's not all inclusive. It's not immersive. Right. And so I wanted to create something where the coach is coaching 4th grade football and he's a dad, has no idea what he's doing. we got something for him. And then I work with several colleges. So I wanted something that was going to be scalable where, a guy that's learning football could learn. So I asked my wife a lot of times, I said, does this make sense to you? Like, if you understand this, I know these coaches are going to understand this. And then, of course, as you work up in levels, we're playing the high school level here. I was at the 6A level a couple of years ago. I work with some colleges. You've got to be able to kind of have some to make it look to make it work. You got to be able to do some pretty intricate stuff. But to do that and work with teenagers, you got to be able to make it simple enough. And so that wasn't my goal. I had no desire to get into business. I put out a book in 2019. And then I guess God's timing, COVID hits, which allows me to kind of take people that had met me through that book and start putting out scheme stuff. Like, I had no to do that. It just kind of happened. And then I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it like Tony Franklin did it, and like Will Mazzoni did it. These are the guys that I learned from. And so I thought they had such a good deal, like where I could walk in, leave, and know what to do. And that was my goal, was the coach wants to run our offense or our defense. We got position manuals they can take home. We got practice schedules they can take home. We have our call sheet they can take home. We have every single play drawn up and done. We've got now 14 different books because offenses don't stay stagnant.
No, they don't.
Yeah, you got to evolve. So every year, here's the new stuff we're doing. Here's the tweaks we're doing. Here's the new formations we're doing. And so that's kind of what's happened. It's just kind of naturally evolved that direction. And it's been really rewarding for me. I'm going to 9 different cities this year to put these clinics on. And
that's awesome.
It's unbelievable. And to connect with coaches all across the country, that's been rewarding to me. I hope I can give something back to them. That's the goal. But to be able to kind of see this community we're building and helping each other. I get texts all the time from a guy, hey, coach, we won our first conference championship and we're running your system. And, man, that's really cool. So Friday night I celebrate our win or cry about our loss. Then I check my phone and see.
And you got about 25 others. Like, that's amazing.
And that was the goal. That was my entire goal with this. It's, if I can make a little money with this, my daughter's going to college and I can pay for her to go to college, that's great.
Oh, absolutely.
But the goal was the relationships.
That's awesome.
I think you're on mute still, Coach.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I was I'm very familiar with the Tony Franklin system, and I remember when the end zone system came out, and they were like all these the packages, and you could buy the packages and be able to run those systems. What is it about like your system that is unique and kind of part of your signature as far as the program goes?
I think what draws a lot of people to it is we have some really good kids here. But when I took the job, we didn't have a ton of talent. And so we had to kind of figure out ways to win with kids that had different skill sets. And talent's kind of a relative word. Everybody's got a talent, but we had to tailor what we do to be successful. And I think that resonates with a lot of coaches is I don't have, I've got this year we're 8-0 and my starting quick guard is 165 pounds. And so we're able to go play against guys that weigh 320 and still win. And then
I think that resonates with a lot of coaches around the country, right? Not everybody has that 5-star talent or that guy going to, wherever big time. So, and that's comforting for a coach to look at a guy like you who can say, look, you can win games with what we have, coach. Not to interrupt you, sorry, but it's just I just feel like that's like, you know what I mean? That resonates with a lot more coaches around the entire country, right? Because not everybody has that talent.
Absolutely. I couldn't stand going to clinics and a guy would say, here's what we do. And they show five D1 receivers. I'm like, well, man, you can do whatever you want.
You're like, well, what? My wife could do that.
That's right. And so I think that's what resonates with people. I'm not trying to downplay our kids. We have a kid going to play Division II football this year. That was the best recruit we've ever had come through our school. But we were able to beat a team that had 7 D1s, and so that's kind of what we're in. And I think that speaks to people. This year we're talented. So years we're talented. You can take that system and you can go 8-0 like we are right now. Right. Years you're not talented, you can still scratch and claw your way to 6 and 7 wins. I think that speaks to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's having been there myself, maybe not. I have to say, like, what you turned around is really incredible. But having been there where I had taken a program that had to go JV after our first year, we just didn't have enough kids. And then in the 4 years after that, we were in a state championship. So I know what it's like. It's trying to build tradition, trying to build buy-in, trying to change. I call it being able to not just to be able to finish, but be able to fight through. The here we go again thing. You know what I mean? So you get up.
I think the biggest thing a coach can do. I get asked all the time. I mean, because you did it. How do you turn a culture around? I mean, it's not, one, it's not easy, but two, what value am I bringing to you? Like a kid needs to know schematically you can help them win. Then you can start getting buy-in on all the other stuff you're talking about. You can't just scream and holler and say, play harder. Like that's not coaching.
Right. And I think that's what, because a lot of coaches coach the way they were coached. Right. And I think, and now, with social media and just the way the youth have changed over time, you need to change with them. And football is the ultimate team game as well, right? So everybody can have a role, whether it's, not everybody has to be the star player, not everybody has to be that. And once I think you communicate and show those kids on your roster that you can help doing this, right? You don't have to. That's when I think you get the buy-in. And then that's when I feel like the culture will start to change. But it's not something that happens overnight, right? And it's really frustrating for me when I see a guy take over a program. And we all know it takes 2-3 years to really engulf it. And sometimes administrators and parents and all that other outside noise, they're not willing to wait that long. And that's a problem.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I've been blessed here at Southside. A lot of people ask me why you're still there, because we're a smaller school. I've had opportunities, obviously, to go coach different places. I feel an administration that would stick through me through 0 and 10 deserves my loyalty back. And that's kind of, I've seen other
100%, Coach. That's awesome.
And I think the young coaches that are listening to this, we all want to climb mountains. Sometimes we climb over the perfect job and step into a really bad job because we think it's going to help further our career. It's okay to be in a place where you're respected and you're treated well and be happy there.
Yeah, the grass isn't always greener, right?
Yeah, it's very important to, if you get the right situation here, and especially when you built it, to be able to leverage. I mean, it's literally it's your baby. You know what I mean? It's what you've been able to build there. I talk about the when you start to see the mind shift in players, when you start to see their success. I think it's one of the most interesting things to see, because most coaches either go into a program that's decent and they build it up, but it wasn't like, at the bottom, or they're in a program and they're coaching and they never quite get there, or they're at a great program, right? And they just kind of carry on the success, which is nice. There's no doubt I've been in those programs, which is nice, but it's kind of a different feeling. Talk about what that's like. It's almost like, I liken it to like the kids, literally a light bulb going on over their head. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, wow, this is how it's done. Talk about what you've seen.
Yeah, I can give just a personal story and then a couple of quotes that kind of helped us. I think probably the third or fourth year I was here, we'd finally kind of started getting better. And we were going to end up missing the playoffs by one game. And I had proof that some other team in our conference had played an eligible kid. And so I went to our superintendent and said, hey, here's what I know. Here's what we need to do. And his answer has resonated with me to today. He said, Coach, we don't want to make the playoffs that way. Like, that's not what we do. Don't say a word about that. We want to earn it. When you get to the playoffs, we want to have earned it. And I kind of went, I didn't want that answer. I wanted to make it then. Does that make, I wanted to make it then. So then, to me, the quote, I think it's Dawn Staley said it to her girls, is life doesn't get easy. Like, it doesn't get easier. It never gets easier. You just adjust to the hard. And I think when your kids and your coaches start learning it's going to be hard and we want it to be hard because that makes us better, that's to me when the light will start to kind of go off. When you don't want it given to you, you want to go earn it. We used to play teams, and if their best player was out, our kids would kind of celebrate that. Like, man, their best guy's out. We got a chance to win. And I would be like, now I want to play them at full strength.
Right.
Like, I want to play them at their best and beat them at their best because I want to prove who we are. And I think when our kids have started to buy into that, it was about year 4 or so for us till we really started buying into that mindset. That's when we started to see success. We're not perfect in that world, and human beings are naturally lazy. We want the shortest trip. That's natural. So getting people to buy into we're not going to be natural. We want hard. We're going to embrace hard. And I think that's when the light bulb for us started to go off.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing as far as I remember what it's like to think you're going to get there and then you just don't get there and you're like, oh, I thought we were here, but we're just missing. And it's a lot of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? And then when you roll, even when you roll, I remember thinking, oh, you know what, we're playing great, but it's funny because you're like, I'm still missing this though. Like, when you've been on a great team that wins it, when all the pieces line up that you're good, unless another team is as good as you are and beats you, you're probably going to have a great chance to win it. And then because I've been coached on a couple of those teams, but then when you're building a program and then you're like, we're rolling, like we're winning some games that we probably shouldn't have won and stuff. But you realize, wow, I think we're still missing like 1 or 2 pieces. But they get that mindset that it doesn't matter. Like they're winning these games, and now it's going to take a team that really is a championship team to beat. And sometimes they do because of that. But now they're playing at a different, like they don't even realize that they're missing something. Like they're missing this or they're missing that. They don't even realize it because they just start to believe. And I think the excitement that comes with going from being down and out to becoming a really good program is something that a lot of players do not get to experience in their lifetime as an athlete, so it's really, really a cool thing. One of the stories, I'm sure, I'm curious if you have any stories like this. One of the stories I would share, when I first took over this program, their freshman team was 0-8. The freshman team was 0-8, did not win a game. And I told them, you guys may not be the team that gets to the mountaintop, to the championship, but you guys are going to be the ones that are going to change everything in the right direction. They were 0-8, and they were looking at me like I had 70 heads. They just lost every game on freshmen. But I could see, like, they really hadn't played a lot of football. They really didn't know. A lot of them were new. But I could see that there was an opportunity that they were going to have a chance. And that team was a team that I was frustrated because I wanted them to make the playoffs when they're seniors. They ended up going 4-6, but they really were. There were a couple plays of being 6-4 and making the playoffs, and then it was the team behind them that went to the state championship, literally the next team, and then they won, like 17 games in a row. That those class behind them and the class after them, but it was those kids. Those kids were willing to be that group. They were willing to be the group that was going to change the program, and those kids to this day are still like as great as the kids are that I love them that made it, to play in those really great teams. It was those kids that I appreciated the most because they kind of understood that they may not get there, and they were close. They almost did it. They lost 2 very close games that they could have won. But it made all the difference. And I remember the first time when I thought, because they might have a chance to turn the program, was the year before they had lost to a team literally 48-0. And the next year they beat them in a shootout, like, I don't remember what it was, but like 38-21 or something like that. And I could see their faces. Like they were better than them, but because that team had killed them the year before, they struggled the whole game to finish it. But once they won that game, I knew from that point forward, they knew that it could happen because they had just beaten a team that had beaten them 48-0 and literally was disrespecting them the year before and like laughing at them. And they had started to change that culture. Do you have any stories or like things that come to your head and things like that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said it always takes that special class. Ours, the 0-10 year, they were sophomores. I think I started 19 sophomores, and you're not going a lot of games. We lost the game hitting the upright, like literally hit the upright. That cost us a game. We roughed the punter on one, and then we had another one where it was right there at the end. We dropped one in the end zone. Should have won 3 games, and their sophomores won 0. They didn't quit. They stuck with us. Then I told you the story about their sophomore or junior year, 4-6. I really thought we were right there on the cusp of making it. Didn't get in. They were the first team in this school's history to ever make the playoffs as seniors. And then when they made the playoffs, we drew on the road the all-time winningest program in Arkansas history, and we went down there and beat them. Like 21-14.
See, those are the stories, Coach, that like you'll take. You know what I mean? Like,
who was that, by the way? Who was that?
Boonville, Arkansas, who's a great.
They
won state title last year, so it's a great program. And we went down there and shocked them, and then we almost knocked off another team in second round. So that group, in my opinion, kind of set the stage because they overcame. They changed the culture, and from then on, now we got to remind our kids. Like my son's on this team; he's a junior. He's never had a losing season, because from that point on, we've had to win. And so now you have to kind of remind them. But here's what happens when you have that winning program and you expect to win. We've won 3 games this year. We won a game by 1 point. We won a game on the 1-yard line where we got to stop on 4th down. And we won what may end up being the conference championship by 7 after we threw a pick 6 to let them tie it with 6 minutes to go. We went down and scored. Because now our kids have bought into, we want hard. Like we want it to be hard and we want to earn it. And I think but you got to have those hard stories to kind of get that culture going. And then we try to constantly remind our kids about that you're standing on the shoulders of the guys who came before you. It's easy because at least when they were young, they can kind of remember that.
Right, because they grew up watching these 0-10 teams.
Right.
And I think that's, Coach, the reason that a lot of teams, because here in Jersey, right, it's football, it is what it is. It's big, but you can see certain teams, like the playoffs are about to start this week, and you kind of look at all the brackets and it's the same names, right? It's constantly the same names. And I played in the early 2000s, and Dave played here too, and we talk about it every year. You see the same programs over and over and over. And why is that, right? And I've recently taken a job at a program that's it's a traditional, big time program, but they've kind of fell off a little bit in the past couple years. And, you kind of look at it and you say, like, winning breeds winning. And, when a team goes down, when these certain winning programs go down 14-0, they don't put their heads in the sand and it's over. They literally go back to the sideline like, guys, we're good. We're going to win, because that's just what they're accustomed to winning. And I think that's a huge part of it. And once you make that turn, you're good. And you stay consistent. Like, this is what it is. This is the standard. And you kind of move forward. And I think you're kind of there now.
Yeah, we were down. We ended up winning Friday night, 50-22 or something like that. We were down 7-0. They went right down the field and scored, and had run something we'd never seen. We had a kid out, and that was a big part of our defense. We went down and scored. They went down and scored again, and I went, "Whoa! Well, I guess we're in one of those type of games." But once we kind of scored, stopped them, and scored, you could see the difference. Our kids just kind of kept going and kept going and kept going, and then when it's high school football, when the momentum swings your way, you got to capitalize. And we were able to go
100%
from down 14-7 to all of a sudden up 42-14. So
it's when you go forward, and you talked a little bit about how you were built. Now that you have the culture built, sometimes you have to remind the guys, right? And is that something that, like, how do you continue to work them so they don't take it for granted? Because one of the things I always worry about in a place that hadn't had success, right? Like you take that X factor of what you were able to do out, and a lot of times they end up going back. And Derek brought up a great point about you see a lot of the same programs that traditionally have been good. There's a lot of factors for that usually, but it's also one of those things that sometimes a person like yourself obviously is the catalyst and really is the key to the whole entire thing. The coach in your case obviously is really the key to building it. But it is one of those things where it could go back, right? A lot of times the town hasn't changed and all those kind of things. It's you change the culture, right? So how do you continue to instill to them the importance that we have to keep hunting, we have to keep striving to be the best, and we can't rest on that? How do you do that kind of stuff?
I think that's harder, in my opinion. It's harder to go from middle to good to really good than it is to go from bad to middle. Like
Of course.
bad to middle is kind of easy. So we try to talk to our kids a lot of times about the enemy of great is not bad. The enemy
No,
of great is good. You know, and
it's
that's kind of
mediocre.
what that's your question there. So to me, we talk a lot about that. You know, and we've tried to, even when we weren't good, we tried to focus on, are we playing to the best of our ability, and take the scoreboard out of it. Because when you're not good, you might play as good as you can play and lose by 14. And I know there's coaches that say there aren't moral victories. I think they're wrong. Like, I think that you might have played the best you could possibly play, and you need to praise those kids when that happens.
Agreed.
And I
Coach, you're
also think,
100% right. And
and I,
that's a
and
lot of coaches will just, won't look at it like that. And it's really hard because these kids have made such strides.
right.
And I think they needed to be rewarded for that. Football's hard, right? Like it's hard. You're practicing more than you're playing. You're out there doing stuff like that nobody else does. You could be really good and then somebody else doesn't do something right. And then it causes this. But those guys need to be praised. Even those little victories when you're trying to keep moving up, those are the things that get the more buy-in, right? And then it
Yeah.
all kind of trickles together. So
And then,
I'm glad you said that,
you
Coach.
got to
It's a
flip
great
it too,
point.
though. That's the hard part, is you got to flip it now too. Is we won 50 to 22 last week, and I called our O-line in, and we had a not very nice meeting. Like, so it has to flip also to where, even though we won, we did
Right.
not play at the level we expect to play. So,
Absolutely.
but you got to be consistent in that. Like, it can't be we
Yep.
won and we ignore mistakes, or we lost and we magnify
Oh,
mistakes.
absolutely not. You still got to hold that standard to where you're trying to go. So even though this was like a good, like we're getting there, this isn't what we're expecting. The
Right.
expectation is still here, right?
Right.
And I think that open communication is big, right? The kids need to be communicated to.
Yeah, and it can be positive. Like, as a guys, it's not the end of the world. I'm excited. Like, we won 50 to 22. The week before, we won a huge game in our conference, and I don't think we're playing as good as we can play. Like, to
Right.
me, that's not a
Yep.
negative thing. That's a positive thing. Like,
Absolutely.
if we'll take it that way, it's a positive thing. If we're going to settle for what we are, then that's not good. And I think that's the biggest thing.
It's maximizing your potential and maximizing your performance each time you come out. And are you doing the very best that you can each time with what you have? And you're right. It's easy to win a game and go and say, hey, we won this game, And I said, like, hey, sometimes the team, you could be playing an inferior opponent and you were winning the game because you're better. That doesn't mean that you played a great game. Like, you have to be able to, and recognize as a player, recognize in yourself and helping them recognize themselves, like, what is your potential? Where should your potential be? Everybody has different levels, but where is yours? And are you giving that to us every single night? And you're right. Listen, I see it all the time with kids and parents, especially. Well, we won. It's like, yes, we did, and they should be able to enjoy that win.
Mm-hmm.
But we're trying to get to here, and if it's just about winning, then eventually you're going to face somebody that's better than you, and you won't be able to overcome that. You won't be able to play at your maximal level, or even go, have an outstanding performance above what you're normally doing. You're just gonna You're just striving to win. And that scoreboard is the enemy to me. So the
Right.
scoreboard is the enemy because I see I coach my son's team, which is 9 years old, and we get now, and they have a lot of talent. But they're learning to figure these things out, right? And I remember after a game, and obviously I was a high school coach for 20 years, so when you're a high school coach and you're coaching youth kids, it's different, right? So, some of the things that you get excited about normally in high school that's in your head, like parents don't process it. It's really not something that they've had to process before. So we win a game, and we're winning the game. I think it was like 28. I mean, the game was over like in this early second period. So the rules are you gotta, you're not allowed to like do all these different things. Well, the second half of the game, this team decides they're just going to run, downhill, and they start running and moving the ball, and they score a touchdown, and they score another one. Okay. So at the end of they score last drive with about, I don't know, 2 minutes left or something like that in the game. And I'm really upset. I'm really upset because I could see our kids are just kind of going through the motions. You know what I mean? Like, hey, the game, the game's going to be over soon. And I talked to them, even though they're 9 years old, about giving your very best every minute that you're on the field. And not to look at the scoreboard just because you won or the game's going to be won, that you're not giving your best. Because at some point, that game's going to be close with somebody, and you're going to let down, and you're going to lose that game. And it's happened to them. You know what I mean? It's happened to them. Okay, but I think that that's an important thing. The parents were shocked. I think the kids, you know how it is with kids. They handle it pretty well. Kids, to me, like I always say, people are so like, they're so worried about your kid. I think kids are very, very resilient. High school, all the way to young kids, they're very resilient. At the end of the day, 5 seconds after you're done, they're thinking in high school, they're thinking about the girlfriend they're going to go see and all those kind of things. And they might be upset for a little bit, but they're going to go have a good time. And the 9-year-old's thinking about the ice cream he's going to get, which is great, which is what's great about kids. But parents like, wow, you're. I said, well, the whole thing is, are we trying to be the best we can be? Okay. It doesn't mean you're going to win every game you play. It's, are we trying to be the best that we can be? And if you want to be a good football player and you want to be a good competitor and you want to be a good teammate, you owe that to yourself and your team to be able to do that, whether you're 9 years old or 29 years old. That whole thing applies, because as they get there, that's when you get like cultures that you took over and that I've taken over in the past. That's how those cultures become bad. You start like I've seen, youth coaches that the only thing they were worried about is just winning the exact game and not whether they got the best out of the kids, right? Well, that begins to be a culture that sets them up for failure when they get older, right? So talk a little bit about the opportunity to give their best in how, like, are there drills that you do? Are there things that you do from practice standpoint that actually get them to work on those kind of things? Resiliency.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some things you can do. I don't know if you can just have a certain drill. I mean, we're like everybody else. We try to strive for effort, so pursuit on defense. I'm not a big I don't like doing the cones. I like to have them touch up on hips. But one thing that we've always learned, and that to me is the easiest, it's easy to say that right here, because some guy might be listening to this. He's got 17 kids, and this is not an option for him. But if you are in a situation where this is an option, don't yell and don't scream. Use the bench. Like, I don't know another way you can get through to a kid. And we don't bench kids for mistakes. Like, now, obvious mistakes we've talked about, we bench kids because of effort. So, like, if you're not giving maximum effort, you're going to come on the bench. Offense, defense doesn't matter to me. You're coming on the bench. If you're making mistakes, giving 100% effort, we're going to try to work with you. Now, at some point, you have to make a decision by performance. But we don't want our kids to play scared. Like, we want you to go out there and not worry about making a mistake. We want you to go out there and play ball, play free, play fast, No DB goes, man, I hope I get roasted on this. Nobody says that.
Right.
Or no receiver goes, I hope I drop this. So, like, I think doing push-ups for drops is stupid. Like, I think, and I don't know what y'all think. I hope I'm not offending anybody, but I think
No,
that's,
Coach, that's what we do on this podcast, buddy. We let it fly. We're good. You
well,
got
just
no,
to me,
you're
like,
all good.
who says, man, I want to drop the ball? We don't want to make that kid more nervous. We just want to
It's like the
increase his
coach that
effort.
yells when the guy drops it, right? Catch the ball. Like, you think that kid doesn't realize that
Correct. Or,
like, you
hey,
think he wanted to drop that?
you know, we don't want to preach to our kids about, like, don't get burnt. I don't want to preach negatives. We want to
Right.
preach, make him throw the hard ball. Like, we want to teach him, hey, stay in his hip, be aggressive. I think too many times coaches want to harp on negatives, and now you got kids. You mentioned it, Coach. Kids are resilient. They want to play hard. Kids want to play hard. You have to show them the standard, which is film. Then you have to use the bench at times. The kids want to play hard, and they want other guys to play hard. And to me, there are drills I'm sure you can do, but we film our practice, so we're doing team. There's expectations there.
Yes.
I've been a big Feed the Cats guy, so Tony Holler has been a guy that I've really
All right.
We've
love
had him
Tony
on,
Holler.
Coach. We've had him on.
good
Yeah.
deal. It's like, I love his stuff, and so we tell our kids, like, if we're doing a rep, it's full speed, but we're not going to just wear you out at practice. Because I think sometimes we want the impossible from kids. Like, we want you to go full speed every rep and give you 90 reps in practice on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the kid is done. Like, you have worn that kid out. We have a 1,200-yard rusher right now for me, and he didn't do any reps Monday, and he split reps yesterday, and he will split reps today. And then he's on Friday night, I'm going to give him the ball 25 times, and he's probably going to go for 200 yards because we're going to keep him fresh. And then we have the same with other guys on our team where we're not going to ask you to do 1,000 reps. I've got a kid who he does all of our jet motion stuff. Well, in practice, he might run 10 a week. That's it. In the game, he might run 15 in the game because we don't want to wear this kid out. So I think a lot of the buy-in you get from kids is we're going to be smart with what we ask. But when we ask it, it freaking better be full speed. And if it's not, then we have a problem.
It's a great point. One of the things that I have seen a lot of basketball coaches do that I started doing, which I like, and in my last couple of years of coaching, I started doing it, but I do it with young kids too, is if you can't take them out for a play, which I prefer to do, take them out for a play, you know, and, just like basketball, you substitute them, you talk to him, explain to him what he did real quick, what he needs to fix, and you put him right back out there. So I tell them right away, I'm not taking you out because I don't like what you're doing. I'm taking you out just to correct something. You can go back in next play. And, or with a quarterback, because he may not be able to, like we run no huddle or anything like that, so he may not, obviously I say, hey, just come to the numbers. Let me talk to you real quick. Explain it. Go now. Here's the play. Go back in. So I think that's a great example we talk about where like using the bench and using the opportunity to literally sometimes, honestly, I notice with kids is they almost just need to clear their mind real quickly, right? Get that correction in there, and everything moves so fast. Sometimes for some kids, right? Something bad happens, it automatically moves really fast. When they're going good, they're fine, and then you can kind of just recalibrate them almost and bring them right back.
Yeah, I think if they trust you, like I mentioned, our young quarterback sophomore going to be a stud for us. He's gotten better every game. Threw a pick six in the fourth quarter of what could be a conference championship game to tie the game. You know what our next play call was? A pass.
Yep.
Because he has to trust that I trust him.
Absolutely.
And I think that's key for kids is, yeah, you made a mistake, and really it might have been my play call that was the mistake. It very much could have been my fault. So we're going to give you another chance to make a play. And we do that with all our kids. We'll pull you out if you make a mistake and correction, put you back in like you mentioned, but you're probably not coming out and sitting by me unless it's an effort deal. If it's an effort deal, you ain't going back in.
No.
Yeah, and that's an important thing for the team to understand too. Effort is, because they hear it so much, but they don't really always process what exactly that means. It's the same thing as like the word like accountability. Like everyone's like accountability. What's accountability? Like it's coming in and being consistent and doing what you're supposed to do every single time, and being able to when you make a mistake, being able to be accountable and say, hey, I'm going to fix this. But effort's the same kind of thing. It's like you preach effort all the time, and being able to point out to them, hey, this is what effort looks like. This from you. This is what you look like when you're not giving effort, right? Because obviously if you compare with somebody else, it may not be always applicable. But this is what you look like when you're giving great effort. And this is what you look like on film when you're not giving the effort you're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
So standard are we holding to? I think that's a really, really great point. Effort is so key because it then brings out performance. If you're always giving effort and you're always doing the best you can, if you have the ability and you've done the things skill-wise to be able to make yourself better, then it's going to click. And then that's the thing that they have to do. And I think your point about trust is important. What do you do with your kids to really develop that bond and trust with them?
Well, I think we mentioned a little bit of it earlier. When we were losing or when we lose a game, like we're not judging it on the scoreboard. We're judging it on the same standard. And I think if they know that this is the standard and this is what we judge it on, then, coach is going to be upfront with me. And we try to speak the truth here. We try to speak the truth to all of them, but we're not trying to condemn a kid or belittle a kid, but we're trying to grow them. And I think they have to understand that, like, coach is in this for me more than just as a player. Like, how does this translate to when the pads are hung up? And so we do a word of the week. I've actually written a couple of team themed books that we use here, which basically, like, the word of the week this week is tenacity. And so we have a young coach that will talk about tenacity, how that relates to football, and then how does that also relate to after football, like when football's done or off of the field. I think that kind of stuff matters to kids. You can't just be a great person. You got to know how to coach. But if you can coach, then you get the opportunity to now talk about other things that the kids need to do. And I think that's where you start to build trust. And we do a lot of off the field fun activities, like I'm sure every other coach does, and we feed them and we do, so I think it's all part of it. If there's a magic pill I could just give a coach, I would wish I could. But the reality is it's constantly working on relationships. It's constantly working on trust with your kids. It's constantly working on becoming better and holding myself accountable. We came in, mentioned the pick our kid threw. That was an awful play call. I'd called the same play, and we've converted 2 third downs in a row. Well, shocker, the defense was sitting on it on that one. So I led him into a bad play, and you have to take ownership of that stuff so that your kids know that, okay, if coach will call himself out, then I know that, okay, we're in this together. Like, it's not we win, it's the coach, and we lose, it's the coach. It's, we're in this boat together. And I think that's something you have to work on. There's not a magic pill, but I think kids can see through you. So if you're not in it for them, like if you're in it
they know
for yourself, they know. We call it servant leadership. It's kind of where I come from. We're in it for the kids. So every question I ask before we do something is this good for our kids? Then I ask, is this good for my assistant coaches? And the last question I might ask, is this good for me? But they all have to come first. And I think if they know that, you're going to have a better chance to get by. It's not a guarantee, but you got a better chance.
No doubt about it. I have one more question. It's about recruiting.
Okay.
Yes.
I know you got to go, Coach, so we'll make it quick.
Yeah, quick. I know you got to go. You have to go. That's right. I see the time it is. Has recruiting changed significantly for you, and what are some of the things you're doing now to handle recruiting?
Yeah, man, recruiting is a thing. It's very tough. COVID hit, and it kind of social media hit first about 10 years ago, and that changed the game. And then COVID hit, and that changed the game. And it's so much more now for these kids about all the camps they have to go to and all the relationships they have to build. And it's tougher to get recruited. I've got kids that I think are D1 type kids that are now going to play D2, or they were D2 and now they're having to play a lower level to try to get their foot in the door. But man, it's a constant, like for me, every week I'm texting college coaches about our kids. Like I'm constantly trying to help our kids. And sometimes I get very frustrated because it doesn't help. But I think as a high school coach, you owe it to your kids to make sure you know who realistically can go play where and have that hard conversation of, hey, I know you want to play college football. That's a possibility because there are schools that would allow it. Are you willing to play D3, NAIA, D2? Are you willing to leave our state? And when you get those answers, now I can put together a real plan that might help you. And you have to be honest with the kids of at some point you might want to play this level, but none of them are calling me back. So where are we willing to go? But man, it's tough. I think there's so many options out there for kids, and unfortunately, there's families that kind of get swindled into these little schemes because everybody wants to play college football.
Oh yeah.
And then you have kids that they like the idea of college football, but I don't really know if they want to really play college football. So you have to have that conversation also. But we've got a few on our team right here that I think want to play college football, and man, I'm constantly working it. You got to constantly work the phone, and it's just an ongoing process. For me, it's been a very frustrating process because I think we have some really good kids here. But ultimately, this is the hardest part for me, and I can't speak for college coaches, is like I'm a big Dolphin fan. I feel if I was the GM of the Dolphins, we'd have won at least more than one playoff game in 24 years because I wouldn't.
Damn right, Coach. Amen to that. Amen.
I wouldn't go, hey, this guy's fast. Let's take him. Like, that's not how you win football games. And I think that at the NFL level, they're doing that. Well, the college level is the same thing. Like, I've got a son on our team. He's 6'1", 185 pounds. He ran a 4.6. He's going to get offers. That doesn't mean he's our best player. I mean, I think he's a good player. But I've got players on our team. We've got a linebacker that's probably going to have 500 tackles his college career or his high school career. Somewhere in that world, best linebacker I've ever coached. He's 5'10", 185, probably runs a 5'2". Yep. That kid can play college football somewhere. Like, there is a school that he can go start at because his instincts are off of the charts. But a college is going to say, well, he did this and he did this and he did this. And I said, well,
he only runs this.
I like winning, and this guy can help us win. So maybe you should give him a chance. And so that's been the hard conversations. The kid understands it. The parents understand it. I don't understand it because I'm watching the film saying he might be the best linebacker in the state. And I've got a young running back who's in the same boat, but he's 5'8". Who cares? Who cares? But unfortunately for colleges, sometimes that's what they look at.
That's right. Yeah,
you're 100% right, Coach.
Deal. No doubt, Coach. Derek's right. We gotta let you go. I don't want you to miss.
I gotta go to class. I'd rather be here, but I probably.
I know that. No,
Coach, I appreciate you taking the time, Coach. Really do. Thank you so much. It's been great. Thank you very much. Good luck with everything. We'll talk soon.
Yes,
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Take care, Coach.
That was great. Wow, that was really, really good. That was really insightful. I've actually followed some of his stuff for a long time. I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely. I mean, he's written like all that stuff that he's written. He's right up there with when it comes to like, your Tony Franklin's, your Noel Mazzoni's. Like, he really took all that stuff and launched that. You know what I mean? And like you said, he wanted to go into it with the idea of any coach at any level, no prior knowledge, could pick up one of his books or read one of his things and relate it to something within his program. And that's kind of how it is, right? The simplicity of it and the communication really gets across to a lot of like, coaches on every level. Like you said, he works with guys from, middle school guys to college guys with certain things within his systems and whatnot. So really awesome to talk to him because I know a lot of people know who he is and whatnot and have, read some of his stuff or whatnot. But, it's really cool to think about, he just wrote one book. And then the timing of it, COVID hits, and now we're all sitting home. Everybody's looking for content and whatever, allowed him to really ramp that up and produce whatever he needed to kind of take that to the next level. Also, a guy with, like you said, a lot of experience because he's been numerous, you know what I mean? He's coached in numerous states and all that other kind of stuff. I really like what he said about, sometimes guys climb over a mountain. And when they're at the perfect spot and kind of, think the grass is greener when it's really not, when you're kind of there in a good situation. Because, look, I'm sure he's had numerous opportunities to go to, like you said, bigger schools or better schools and whatnot. And, he's kind of good where he's at, which is pretty cool. Especially to see his team like and obviously you can relate going, with him taking a team from 0-10 to being undefeated and whatnot. So definitely a good something for a lot of the people that watch this and the coaches that watch this to kind of, learn from or take it, some notes on.
No doubt about it. Awesome stuff, dude. All right, well, we'll get off. That was really, really good one to get on there. Art, we now dipped into the state of Arkansas. I love it,
dude. I mean, I think that's cool. Like,
oh yeah, no,
how many
exactly.
times do we talk to some of these guys though, right? And they're all military, right? Like a lot of their fathers or uncles or whatever, there's some type of military like kind of link to coaches. And I really, looking back on it, you talk about like Lombardi and all those guys, like there was some type of military aspect to it. Right. And now I think you see a lot of that changing with coaches where that militant structure type of, there's still like, that a little bit of that, but that's kind of branched away now where that drill sergeant type of mentality as a coach isn't really what kind of gets it done now. And I think you still need to have some type of that kind of structure, but it's not really that kind of overarching thing anymore. But I think it, like to him, he said it benefited to him, right? Because he played high school in 3 different states just because, dad was moving around and everything. And then ultimately ended up back in Arkansas, right? And that's from where he was Alabama for a while. And now he's, Arkansas. So, all right, we're getting there. We're getting there.
We're absolutely getting there. There's no doubt. It's cool stuff, dude. It really is. All right. Well, until I think tomorrow we're back, right?
Yep, we'll be back tomorrow with Mike Smith coming back on from American Heritage after having, we'll talk about his season a little bit, talk about, the ups and the downs of a high level program and dealing with some top end recruits, right? I mean, he's got a quarterback, Diabell, going to Texas as a 2026. He's got Malachi Tony, who's a receiver who just reclassed to the 2025 class, even though he's a 2026. He's going to be going to Miami. So, and then just the overall like guys that he has on his team that he thinks should be playing, top end college ball and have no offers. So it'll be good to get Mike back on. He got 2 weeks off before this Florida State playoffs, buddy.
Oh, they have 2 weeks off? Wow.
2 weeks because this is I guess like maybe I believe it's something to do with the hurricane and like a makeup week type of thing. So I don't know if they're pushing the season or he gets a bye because he's ranked somewhere. So we'll talk about it a little bit. But that's another thing. You're dealing with hurricanes that hit and now scheduling stuff like never ends for a high school coach, people. I know you guys all think everything is fine and dandy sitting in the stands on Friday night telling me I suck as a play caller, but let's rock.
That's the luxury you have when you sit in the stands, right?
The best coaches are in the stands on Friday nights. Don't you know that? You know that.
Oh, I know.
You know that. Oh, yes, we do.
There's no doubt. All right, so next time. Here we go. We're out.